जय श्रीमती जी. Srimad Devi Bhagavat. If you want to know who Adi Shakti is, read Devi Bhagavat, said by Her Holiness Srimati Ji Nirmala Devi. Sankalpam. Mama Atmanaha Sahajayogi Kutumbanam Atmonnati Prityartham Moksha Prapti Prityartham Sakshat Shri Adi Shakti Mataji Shri Nirmala Devyai Pujanam Karishe. The Holy Recital of Srimad Devi Bhagavat. Chapter 5, Episode 14-15. Death of Chiksur, Tamraksh and Vidalaksh. Vyasji says, Mahishasura could not believe when he heard that Durmukh and Vashkal had been killed. He said, "What has happened? My two bravest and strongest warriors have been killed by a woman. This proves that all beings are dependent on destiny. Only destiny has the power to mete out happiness and sorrow in proportion to good and bad deeds of the past. Now again, all of you consider the matter and give me your decision as to what action has to be taken." Vyasji says, when Mahishasura finished speaking, his army chief Chiksurakya said, "What is so difficult about killing a woman? I will go and finish her off." Saying this, he mounted his chariot and left with an army. He made Tamra his bodyguard. He arrived with a lot of noise and dust. The Devi, the most auspicious Bhagavati Jagadamba, had already sounded the conch, the bell, and the twang of the bowstring. These sounds created fear in the hearts of the Asura army. They turned to run away when Chiksurakya bellowed at them, "What is so fearful about a mere woman? I will send her to Yampuri shortly." He picked up his bow and spoke to the Devi. "O you with large and beautiful eyes, you may cause fear to ordinary beings with your roaring sounds, but you do not scare me. It is a sin to kill a woman, and it earns reproach and dishonor. So the idea of killing you is fading from my mind. For women, coy glances and amorous gestures are enough to win a war. You have lost your senses. That is why you are calling for war instead of love. War is ugly. Swords flash, maces smash, and gleaming arrows cut bodies to shreds. Contrary poets glorify death on the battlefield and claim that it merits a place in heaven. Do not believe it. I would advise you to leave all this and go wherever you wish, or else become the queen of King Mahishasura." Vyasji says, the Devi interrupted him and said, "O foolish one, you are trying to speak like a wise Pandit. You neither know the science of ethics, nor do you know the science of logic. You have not studied under patriarchs and elders, and you have no wisdom of your own. You have only served foolish people and have become foolish yourself. When you do not know Rajdharam, duties of a sovereign, why are you indulging in useless talk? Mahishasura will definitely be killed by me on the battlefield, and there will be a mire of blood and sand. The pillar of righteousness will be established. After that, I will be satisfied and I will leave. The wicked demon has become arrogant and is aggressing the Devas. It is my foremost duty to kill him. You be warned and fight carefully." Vyasji says, the foolish demon began to shoot arrows at the Devi. The arrows that the Devi shot were like venomous serpents, all causing painful punctures in the skin. Then she hit him with a mace and he fainted, falling like a rock into his chariot. Seeing this, Tamra came to face the Devi. She laughed loudly and said, "Come, come, I am making arrangements to send all of you to Yampuri. You have become weak and your lifespan is also at an end. What purpose is served by sending you? What arrangements is Mahishasura making at home for extending his life? Even if I kill you, my work is not complete because that wicked demon who is terrorizing the Devas still lives. Therefore, it is better for you to go back and send Mahishasura. He can see for himself the situation." Tamra swelled with anger. He also started shooting arrows at the Devi. She rained sharp arrows on him. In the meanwhile, Chiksurakya came out of his swoon and he also joined the fight. Tamra had a heavy pole made of iron. He hit the lion with it and began to laugh. This enraged the Devi. She picked up her gleaming sword and knocked his head off. Chiksurakya picked up a sword and rushed at the Devi. The Devi released 5 quick arrows. The first one broke his sword, the second severed his arm, and the other 3 cut off his head. In this way, these 2 evil and invincible Danavas were killed by the Devi. The Devas rejoiced and showered the Devi with fragrant flowers. The Devas, the Rishis, Munis, Gandharvas, and all other divine beings began to sing the Jai Jaikar of the Devi. Mahishasura was shocked and dazed with the news of the killing of Chiksurakya and Tamraksh. He sent his best warriors, Asiloma and Vidalaksh. They had never been defeated in battle. When they saw the Devi, they were struck by her form. She was seated on a fearsome lion. She had 18 arms and weapons of all description. Asiloma said, "Devi, tell me the truth. For what purpose have you come and why are you killing these innocent Daityas? I am willing to make a treaty with you. I will give you all the gold, gems, and precious metals that you want. Then you may go. Why do you wish to fight? You are so delicate that even flowers, if thrown at you, might injure you. I am amazed at how you are bearing the burden of all these weapons. The law of this world is to embrace happiness and renounce sorrow. Even happiness is of 2 kinds. Spiritual happiness is eternal, and the happiness of worldly pleasures is short lived. If you are aware of the basic principles of life, you will know that one should avoid war. This youth is very transient, so while you are still young and beautiful, you should enjoy the pleasures of life. You must not indulge into actions which cause pain to others. The Daityas have not harmed you in any way, so why do you wish to kill them?" The Devi said, "O you with powerful arms, your first question is why I have come here. I will answer this and then tell you why I am killing the Danavas. Daitya, I roam the entire creation and am always present everywhere. I watch as a witness all the deeds, good and bad, being performed by every living being. I have no desires, I have no greed, and I bear no malice to anyone. In order to preserve the Maryadas of Dharma and to protect the saints, I descend on this earth from time to time. Protection of the just, preservation of the Vedas, and destruction of evil forces is my natural disposition. That is why I take various incarnations. In every yuga, all the incarnations that come are through me. Mahishasura is wicked. He is constantly trying to kill the Devas. I know this, and therefore I have come here for the sole purpose of killing him. You may stay and fight if you wish, or you can go back to Mahishasura and give him this message of mine. Why are you sending other Daityas? Come here yourself and fight. Maybe he will decide to come and fight. My advice to all of you is to renounce all your hostility and go back to Patal. After giving back to the Devas all that you misappropriated from them, you should go and live happily in Patal, which is ruled by Prahalad. Vyasji says, Asiloma turned to Vidalaksh and in the Devi's presence asked him what they should do. Vidalaksh said, Even though death is imminent, we cannot leave. Our master will never give up. That is why he has sent us here. The dharma of those who are servile is a difficult one. We cannot have our own desires and pride. We have to always obey the master. He directs us like puppets. How can we go and say these words to him, which are unpleasant and unacceptable to him? He will never agree to return all the possessions to the Devas and go back to Patal. We should not speak lies, but we cannot also speak truths which are unpleasant. The best truth is that which is not only pleasing but also benevolent. If the truth is not pleasing, then it is better to remain silent. It is our dharma not to mislead the king by speaking untruths. If we go there and give the message, he will surely fly in rage. Therefore, it is better to stay here and fight. Let us accept death as a part of our duties and continue our efforts to please our master and fulfill his orders. Vyasji says, Asiloma and Vidalaksh decided to stay on and fight. They get into their chariots, picked up their bows, and began shooting arrows at the Devi. Vidalaksh was in the forefront. He shot 7 arrows. The Devi sent 3 quick arrows, all of which struck him. He was mortally injured and fell out of his chariot onto the ground. As was his fate, he did not survive his injuries. He died by the hands of the Devi. Asiloma picked up his bow and advanced. He held up his right hand and spoke respectfully to the Devi. He said, O Devi, the Danavas are wicked and unprincipled. I can see that the time for their destruction has come. But, being a loyal subject, I have to fight this war. Mahishasura is very foolish. He has no discretion. One cannot speak the truth before him if it is not pleasing to him. Therefore, in accordance with dharma of the warriors, death is acceptable to me, whether it is auspicious or inauspicious. In my understanding, fate is supreme. Ego is contemptible. Nothing can be accomplished by exerting one's own valor and energy. That is why all the Danavas are falling to your arrows. Saying this, he started shooting arrows. Devi Bhagavati cut every arrow in mid-air. Then she sent a hail of sharp arrows which hit him with precision. His body was riddled with holes and blood flowed in gushes. But still, he picked up his iron mace and rushed towards the Devi. In anger, he banged the mace on the lion's head. The lion disregarded this and tore his chest with his sharp claws. Asiloma jumped on to the lion and tried to attack Devi Bhagavati Jagadamba. Rajan, the Devi turned on him and cut off his head with her razor sharp sword. His body fell to the ground with a huge thud. There was chaos in the Danava army. The Devas filled the air with Devi Ki Jai. Most of the Danavas were lying dead on the battlefield. Those who moved were killed by the lion. Some injured Danavas managed to escape and foolishly went back to Mahishasura. They began to wail, Maharaj, Asiloma and Vidalaksh have been killed. Please save us. Those who were left have been devoured by the Devi's lion. Mahishasura sank into desperation and desolation. Black clouds of despair gathered over him. Chapter 5, Episode 16-17. Mahishasura goes before Devi, quotes the story of Mandodri. Vyasji says, hearing the account of the soldiers, Mahishasura flew into a rage. Bring me that chariot of mine, to which 1,000 donkeys can be harnessed, which is decorated with flags and banners, which is equipped with weapons, and which has strong axles and wheels. His charioteer returned with the best vehicle, which was not only full equipped but plated in silver. Mahishasura assumed human form. He thought, I am a buffalo and I have horns, and my appearance is fearful. The Devi will not like me. To impress a female, one must look attractive and smart. Therefore, I will make myself handsome, and she will certainly be charmed. Also, it is in my own interest that I should do this. So he dressed himself in brilliant robes and adorned himself with rich jewels and armlets. He sat in the chariot, holding bow and arrows. He resembled a second Kamdev, god of love. Swollen with pride and arrogance, he arrived in the presence of Bhagavati Jagadamba. His appearance was such that any woman would be drawn to him. When the Devi saw that Daityaraj Mahishasura had arrived, accompanied by many brave warriors, she began to sound the conch, that is Shankadwani. This is the sound which causes wonderment to all who hear it. But Mahishasura continued to approach the Devi and laughingly said, It is the nature of this world to constantly change. Devi, whoever lives in it, whether man or woman, is always searching for comfort and happiness. But only alliance or connection can give happiness. Remaining separate or detached does not give any happiness. Alliances are of various kinds. I will tell you. Listen. Some places are so conducive that connections get formed. In other situations, the alliance gets formed naturally. From my wisdom, I will tell you about the different kinds of relationships of love. The highest love is that which parents have for their children. The second is love between brothers and sisters. The love which gives the maximum happiness is considered the foremost. Learned men have said that a boat carries many people. Even though they are diverse in their natures, they stay together out of necessity. Any happiness they get from this togetherness is short lived and is classified as the least. The requirement for mutual happiness in an alliance is equality in intelligence and prowess, beauty and form, temperament, attributes, and family background. If you make an alliance with me, then you can be assured of the highest joy and happiness. O pleasing one, according to my desires, I can change innumerable forms. Indra and all the gods have been defeated by me. Whatever riches and heavenly jewels I have in my palace can all be yours. You can also distribute them as you please. O beautiful Devi, accept my offer and become my queen. I am willing to accept your servitude, that is Dasta. I will agree to your wish and stop tormenting the Devas. I will respect whatever desires you have to make you happy. O Devi who speaks in sweet tones, you have large, beautiful eyes. Your every wish is my command. You have infatuated me with your beauty. I have become restless and impatient and have come before you. The arrows of Kamadev have wounded me grievously. Please help me. It is the foremost dharma to alleviate the sorrows of those who come to you for refuge. Your dark eyebrows are enhancing your beauty. O Devi with the slim waist, it is I who am your servant. I am willing to put myself at your service. For the rest of my life, I will speak the truth and never break my promise. O beautiful one, have mercy on me. From the day of my birth till today, I have never been so desperate and forlorn. Even in encounters with Brahma and other powerful gods, I was never crushed. It is only before you that I am accepting your authority. Brahma and all the gods are aware of my superiority and prowess on the battlefield. The same I am here before you, ready to be your servant. Please turn your attention on me. Vyasji says, Mahishasura was rambling on in this meaningless way. Adorned with the most pleasing and beautiful form, Bhagavati Chandika's face lit up with a most divine smile. She laughed lightly and began to speak. The Devi said, Except Param Purush Paramatma, the God Almighty, no one is acceptable to me. It is only He that I desire. Creation of the entire universe is my primary concern. That Almighty God is the Supreme Spirit. His attention is always on me because I am His pure desire. My form is auspicious. Because of His proximity, the ever present Chaitanya flows constantly from my lotus feet. Whoever comes in contact with Chaitanya can be likened to inert iron which comes into contact with a magnet and gets magnetized. Worldly pleasures hold no attractions for me. O foolish one, your mind is very base and stupid. That is why you are desirous of the pleasures of relationship with women. Indeed, a woman is said to be the most tenacious and inflexible chain to bind a man. He who is bound by iron chains can cut loose, but for those who are trapped in a woman's chains, find it impossible to escape. Why are you craving for the female bondage? If you wish for happiness, keep peace in your heart. Peace and balance is the only way to happiness. Forming an attachment with a woman is full of difficulties. Knowing this, why are you making foolish suggestions? Leave your enmity with the Devas and roam free in the world. Patal is a better place for you to live. You can even fight a war if you so wish. There is no shortage of Shakti in me. O Danava, it is the prayer of the Devas which has brought me here to kill you. As the fruits of your verbal praise and offer of friendship to me, I am telling you this truth. While you are still alive and well, leave this place and go away. By walking 7 steps together, friendship develops. Therefore, I grant you your life. O warrior, if you are desirous of death, then you can gladly fight. You will die at my hands, there is no doubt in this. Vyasji says, after Bhagavati Jagadamba spoke, A totally infatuated Mahishasura began to speak in sweet tones in a very gentle voice. O beautiful woman of most pleasing form, I am afraid to attack you because you are a woman. You are so beautiful and delicate. Anyone who beholds you will be filled with admiration. This form of yours causes Vishnu, Shankar, and Brahma and all others to be steeped in bliss and worship. Then, O lotus eyed one, is it fitting for me to enter into battle with you? Therefore, if it pleases you, become my consort and pay homage and devotion to me, or return safely to the place from where you have come. I will not use weapons against you because you have declared friendship with me. I have spoken for your benevolence. Therefore, it is for your good if you leave and go away. Killing a beautiful woman will not give me any glory. There is no penance that can be done to atone for the killing of a woman, child, or realized being, Brahmin. Therefore, I am thinking of taking you home with me. If I try to use force, it will be of no use, because it will cause a hindrance in giving the happiness of a union. You have lustrous hair. This is the reason I am speaking to you in humble, gentle, and prayerful tones. To always be in the company of one's beloved is the greatest happiness for man. So also it is for a woman. One can experience happiness only in togetherness, not by being separated. You are a beautiful woman. The ornaments that adorn you enhance your beauty. From where has this shrewdness come which makes you refuse and spurn my offer to become my queen? Who has advised you to remain detached from these pleasures? O sweet voiced Devi, some adversary has betrayed you, and that is why you are disillusioned. Leave your obstinacy and accept this most gracious offer. It is absolutely certain that our alliance will give us all the happiness and pleasures of the world. It is only by being together that Vishnu Lakshmi, Brahma Savitri, Shankar Parvati, and Indra Shachi complement and embellish each other. Is there any woman who can stay separate from her husband and enjoy lifelong happiness? From where did you get example and advice which makes you refuse my proposal to be your husband? I wonder where Kamdev has gone, otherwise, he could have influenced you with his 5 arrows. Later, you will regret and rue this decision. You will suffer the same fate as Mandodari. She received an offer from a very handsome, strong, and brave king, but she refused. And then, when her heart and mind became filled with desire for marriage, she had to become the wife of a fool. Vyasji says, Bhagavati Jagadamba asked Mahishasura, who was this Mandodari, and who was the king she refused? What was the name of the foolish and fraudulent king whom she finally married? Tell me this story in detail. Mahishasura said, there was a country on earth called Singhal. It had dense forests and every corner was full of riches and food grains. Chandrasen ruled as king. He was very dharmic, just and peaceful, and looked after all the requirements of his subjects. He was always in search of pure knowledge. He had made a study of all the scriptures. He was an accomplished warrior. He had a dutiful and pious queen called Gunavati. She bore a beautiful daughter, and the king and all the subjects rejoiced. He held a big celebration for the naming ceremony. They called the girl Mandodari. She grew more beautiful every day like the waxing moon. When she reached maturity, The king began to look for a suitable husband for her. At that time, there was a very illustrious king named Sudhanva who ruled Madradesh, lying between the rivers Ravi and Jhelum. He had a son who was famous by the name of Kambugriv. The Brahmins told King Chandrasen that this handsome and brave Kambugriv was the most compatible match for Mandodari. He had all the qualities desirable in a king, and he is also well versed in the art of governance. The king went to his dear wife Gunvati and said, I have found a most suitable groom for our daughter. His name is Kambugriv. What is your view in the matter? The queen agreed with her husband and went to speak to her daughter Mandodari. Your father has chosen a husband for you. His name is Kambugriv. Do you agree to this marriage? Mandodari said, I will not accept this match. I have no desire to marry. I will take a vow to remain a virgin all my life. Mother, I want freedom of movement. I want to spend all my time in tapasya. This ocean of worldly pleasures and attachments is the cause of pain and difficulties. Wise and learned men have said that freedom from worldly attachments is the main requirement for achieving moksha. I have no interest in marriage and husband. During the marriage ceremony, one has to make a vow in the presence of Agni that, O husband, in every way I am surrendered to you. Then, in the in law's house, one has to be subservient to mother in law and brother in law and others. Chapter 5, Episodes 18-19. Devi kills Mahishasura, Deva sings stutis. Mahishasura kept talking. Mandodari had a younger sister. Her name was Indumati. When she reached marriageable age, her father, King Chandrasen, held a Swayamvar. Kings from far and wide came to attend. Princess Indumati placed the garland on a powerful looking king. He was very handsome and also had all royal qualities. At that moment, Mandodari felt desire growing within her. She became restless. Her eye fell on a Shudra king, that is, a fourth caste among the Hindus. He was a wicked man, but his appearance was very smart. As was her fate, she became attracted to him. She sent a message to her father to perform her marriage also, as she had selected a husband. The king was very happy, and Mandodari was married to King Charudeshna. A big dowry was also given. The new bridegroom was extremely happy and went back to Madradesh with Mandodari. For many days, Mandodari spent happy times with King Charudeshna. But he was a man of evil purpose and bad conduct, and Mandodari discovered this. She was filled with repentance and disgust. She remembered that during her own Swayamvar, she had seen this same king and felt repulsion. But under the influence of desire, she chose the same man. I have been deceived. Now, what can I do except feel sad? This Charudeshna is shameless, cruel, and full of guile. How can I feel any love for him? My life is accursed and meaningless. Up till now, I was free from the sorrows of worldly attachments. That which I should never have done has happened, and these are the fruits which I have to accept. If I give up my life, it will be an unforgivable suicide. If I go immediately to my father's house, I will be an object of ridicule to my friends. Therefore, I must accept my fate and continue to live here. Time is a powerful healer. I will gradually be able to renounce all desires. Mahishasura continued speaking. The unfortunate Mandodari stayed on in her wicked husband's house. Every moment was filled with sorrow and repentance. Worldly pleasures were as good as gone. Therefore, O beautiful and auspicious one, by insulting and spurning a king like me, do you also wish to languish in the house of a mean and cruel husband? Accept my good advice. It is benevolent for a woman to marry me. If you refuse, you will also face unbearable sorrows. There is no doubt about this. Devi said, O silly and foolish one, you better run away to Patal or face me in battle. After killing you, I will destroy all the Asuras and leave completely happy and satisfied. Whenever saints and holy persons are faced with difficulties, I incarnate myself for the protection. Daitya, understand this. I am eternally formless and I am unborn. But for the sake of my devotees, I take birth and form. Mahishasura, my words are infallible. Take notice. In answer to the prayers of the Devas, I have manifested purely to destroy you. As soon as I kill you, I will disappear. Therefore, you either fight or go to Patal, which is the abode of Asuras. I am now going to kill you. This is the truth. Vyasji says, hearing the words spoken by Bhagavati Jagadambika, Mahishasura picked up his bow and entered the battlefield. He fitted sharp arrows and pulled the bowstring up to his ear. Then he let fly a barrage of arrows. The Devi cut every arrow that he shot. A fierce battle started between Mahishasura and Devi Jagadamba. The Devas and Danavas watched and prayed for victory. Suddenly, Durdhar jumped in and tried to distract the Devi by shooting arrows at her. The tips of the arrows had been dipped in poison. This infuriated Devi Bhagavati. She aimed luminous flashing arrows at Durdhar and killed him. His lifeless body fell to the earth like a mountain. Seeing the fall of Durdhar, Trinetra came in and aimed 7 arrows at the Devi. Before the arrows could reach, Bhagavati Jagadamba cut them in mid-air with her sharp arrows. With her Trishul, Devi cut Trinetra to shreds. The next to come was Andhak. He was armed with an iron mace. He struck the Devi's Vahana, the lion, on the head. Andhak was a strong fighter, but the lion tore him with his claws and began to eat his flesh. Mahishasura was astonished and stunned to see the destruction of so many of his brave warriors. He made the Devi the target of his arrows. Before the arrows touched her, the Devi cut all his arrows to pieces and then used her mace and injured him on the chest. To the Devas, Mahishasura was like a thorn in the flesh. When he was hit with the mace, he almost lost consciousness, but he overcame the shock and pain and rushed to attack. He banged his mace on the head of the lion. This enraged the lion and he reared up to claw him. Mahishasura immediately took the form of a lion and rushed at the lion. When the Devi saw that Mahishasura had changed his form into that of a lion, she became furious. The Devi had a collection of most lethal arrows, some of which were like venomous serpents. She sent a rain of arrows on him. He immediately changed himself into a mountainous elephant, mad and intoxicated in rut. Then he turned into a man and picked up the peak of a mountain and hurled it at the Devi Chandika. Devi Jagadamba pulverized the mountain top as it approached and laughed in derision. He once more turned into an elephant. the Devi's lion leaped up and sat on his head and began tearing him with his claws. Mahishasura changed into a fabulous deer having 8 legs and myriad horns, that is, Sharab, and attacked the lion. Devi picked up her sword and struck him on the head. He also managed to bruise the Devi. Finally, he took his original form of a ferocious buffalo with strong, powerful horns. He began to hit the Devi with his horns and swishing tail. He roared with laughter, and using his tail as a sling, he began to shoot stones at the Devi. Full of pride and arrogance, he said, Devi, beware! You of beautiful form and youthful energy. Today I am certainly going to kill you. You have lost your senses. That is why you are challenging me. Because of this illusion, all your efforts are getting wasted and your energy is becoming depleted. After killing you, I will kill all those crafty devas who used a woman to fight for their cause. Devi said, O proud and foolish one, don't be too ambitious. Just wait and watch. I will kill you and remove all fear from the hearts of the devas. Vyasji says, in that instant, Bhagavati Chandika picked up the Trishul and charged Mahishasura. This caused great joy among the devas. They began to sing stutis to the Devi and rained gentle flowers on her. They chanted songs of victory and beat drums. From the skies, the battle was being watched by rishis, Gandharvas, Nagas, Kinnars, who are a class of demigods having the head of a horse, and Charans, divine bards. Mahishasura knew all the strategies of guile and fraud. He was assuming innumerable illusory forms and causing injury to the Devi Jagadamba. Then Devi Chandika, whose eyes had turned red with anger, hit him in the chest with her trishul. He fell to the ground. It appeared as if his life had ebbed. But all of a sudden he stood up and continued his attack, kicking and flailing. Each time he kicked, he roared with thunderous laughter. The devas began to be fearful. Devi Bhagavati then took her most trusted weapon, the chakra with 1,000 spokes and teeth. Mahishasura was in front of her. In a loud and awesome voice, she said, O drunk and intoxicated fool, look at this chakra. It will sever your head from your body. You have only an instant to live. Prepare to go to Yamlok, that is the abode of Yama, god of death. Thus saying, the Devi Bhagavati Chandika released the chakra. It flew straight at Mahishasura and cut off his head. The blood gushed around from his neck like a waterfall from a mountain. His headless body reeled and fell to the earth. Cries of victory resounded in the heavens. The Devi's Vahana was extremely strong and powerful. He began to voraciously devour the demons who were running away from the battlefield. After the death of the wicked Mahishasura, the remaining Danavas were paralyzed with fear. They headed straight for Patal. Then the Devas, Rishis, Munis, saints and other men began to live in peace. Bhagavati Chandika disappeared and began to dwell in a holy place. It is the nature of Bhagavati to bestow happiness on the gods. In gratitude, all the Devas reached that place to sing her praises. That is Devi Aradhana. The Devas said, O Devi, it is only by your Shakti that Brahma is able to perform his duty of creation, Vishnu of preservation, and at the time of dissolution, Shankar performs destruction. At any time, if you withdraw your Shakti, they will be rendered ineffectual. Therefore, the creation, preservation, and destruction is entirely dependent on you. Kirti, honor, Mati, intellect, Smriti, memory, Gati, pace, Karuna, compassion, Daya, mercy, Shraddha, faith, Dhriti, stability, Vasudha, earth, Kamala, wealth, Ajapa, silent utterance, Pushti, nourishment, Kala, technique, Vijaya, victory, Girija, Ganges, Jaya, triumph, Tushti, satisfaction, Prama, perception, Buddhi, wisdom, Uma, brilliance, Rama, charm, Vidya, knowledge, Kshama, forgiveness, Kanti, splendor, and Medha, comprehension. All these names belong to you. This is known in all the three worlds. O Jagadambe, you give protection to the whole world. Is there anyone who can be separated from your energy and still hope to be effective? O Bhagavati, verily you are the support of the universe. Otherwise, how can Kachap, tortoise, and Sheshnag get the Shakti to support the earth? Mother, the earth is not separate from you. If it is separate, how can it maintain its orbit unsupported in the cosmos? Providing nourishment to all living things is also entirely done by you. The seven material causes and the 16 causes of change or alteration in nature, that is Prakriti and Vikriti, are a part of you, and by being connected, the entire living world exists. Therefore, it is you who gives life. Without discrimination, you sustain the gods and others in equal measure. O Mother, in a garden, many trees are planted for enjoyment and amusement. Many do not bear fruits or flowers and are only fit for cutting down. But a good gardener will never like to cut down trees which he himself has planted. That is why you do not discriminate between devas and daityas and are always ready to do anything for their benevolence. You are brimming with compassion. Those enemies who covet the celestial maidens are destroyed by you in battle only on the prayers of those maidens. The most profound and remarkable thing is that the powerful demons could have been destroyed merely by your will, but you deemed to take an incarnation to accomplish it. It is nothing but your divine play, entirely at your will and pleasure. O Divine Mother, knowledge, which is the giver of happiness, and non knowledge, which is the giver of sorrow, are both your forms. It is your nature to alleviate the sufferings which are a part of being born a mortal. Those superior beings who are desirous of moksha constantly engage themselves in your worship. Those foolish ones who are engrossed in worldly attractions never experience this joy and bliss. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shankar, and all the gods are continuously absorbed in the worship of your holy lotus feet. The foolish and most unfortunate man, who does not even feel the desire to worship you, will forever keep falling into the ocean of worldly attachments and attractions. O Devi Chandika, it is from the dust of your lotus feet that Brahma started the creation of the universe, that Vishnu started his job of preservation, and Shankar accomplishes his act of destruction and dissolution. The person who does not worship you as the primordial Shakti is most unfortunate and wretched. O Devi, verily you are the power of speech of both the Devas and the Danavas. If you did not abide in their mouths, they would be bereft of the power of speech. Even after being equipped with the organs of speech, anyone who remains separated from you will not be able to speak. Bhagavati, it is most amazing that even demons become objects of compassion for you. On the battlefield, the fortunate ones who are killed by your weapons become entitled to enter heaven. Otherwise, as a punishment for their evil deeds, they would permanently languish in hell and face trials and tribulations. Your attributes are boundless and beyond description. Even now, no one has been able to fully comprehend you. You are beyond the mind, as mind is your creation. In Satya Yuga, there is a predominance of Sattva Guna. Therefore, there is no faith or support for unholy texts which impart impure knowledge. But in Kali Yuga, vain and self conceited authors and poets try to push you into oblivion. Ignore your existence and compose stutis and verses in praises of those lesser gods whom you yourself have created. You, who grant moksha as a reward, are beyond knowledge, and you give the experience of yoga. The Sattvic Munis, who continuously meditate upon you with a fixed and clean attention, do not have to undergo the unpleasant and undesirable sojourn in a womb waiting for a birth. Those devotees of yours who are drenched in meditation upon your holy lotus feet are the most blessed and auspicious in this world. You are Sakshat Chitta Shakti. This same Chitta Shakti exists in Paramatma, and that is how the Supreme Being manifests in name and form to accomplish the grand work of creation, preservation, and dissolution of the universe. This is known to all. Apart from Paramatma, there is no being who can be separated from your energy and still succeed in any action whatsoever. Jagadambe, nothing can come from an attention which does not have you as its sole object because it is inert. Even if the senses are endowed with attributes and good destiny, still if they are outside your Chitta Shakti, that is divine attention, they can never succeed in obtaining the fruits. O Divine Mother, when yajnas are performed by saints and holy men, and oblations are offered to the sacred fire, the Devas get their entitled share. But during the offering of oblations, if Swaha is not chanted with full attention on you, they can never get their share. It is not possible. It is clear beyond doubt that the sustenance of the universe is entirely under your command. In the beginning, it was you who created the entire universe. Vishnu, Rudra, and other gods who protect the various regions themselves get protection from you. And at the time of dissolution, everything gets destroyed, but you alone continue to exist. Your primordial nature pervades and penetrates the universe. The gods have not been able to fathom this nature of yours, so how can we ordinary mortals understand you, O Mother? This demon Mahishasura was merciless and cruel. You killed him and protected the Devas. O giver of birth to the universe, how can we of limited knowledge ever hope to know you when even the Vedas have failed to describe you fully and accurately? O Ambike, O you of renowned power and majesty, you have done the highest favor to the world by killing this evil demon and greatest enemy. He was a constant thorn which caused pain and distress to everyone. Your victory will be celebrated by the whole universe. Please be merciful to us and keep us always in your protection. Vyasji says, pleased with all the praises, the Devi spoke in sweet, gentle tones. Respectful Devas, if there is any other matter that is troubling you, let me know. Whenever you are faced with any insurmountable calamity, bring me to mind. I will immediately come to your aid. The Devas said, Devi, this Mahishasura was our most dangerous enemy. Now that you have destroyed him, all our fears are over. Jagadambe, deign to grant us firm and unswerving bhakti. And as fruits of this bhakti, we desire that the whole universe recognizes you and continuously worships your divine lotus feet. Only Mother tolerates thousands of transgressions. Knowing this, why doesn't mankind worship you, O most divine Mother? In this tree of life, there is only Hum and Tvam, that is me and thou. There is not a third who will forgive trespasses. If not from you, O Parameshwari, from whom and by whose grace can man expect to receive forgiveness and auspiciousness? Those gods and men who have been born with exceptionally good destinies but do not worship you and sing your praises should be considered most contemptible, despicable, and unfortunate. With our whole mind, with our whole body, and in one voice, we say this truth again and again. Devi, in happiness and in sorrow, you are our only refuge. With all your weapons and powers, O Mother, protect us. Your lotus feet is our ultimate heaven and resting place. Vyasji says, as the Devas were singing the praises of the Divine Mother, she disappeared from their sight. The Devas prostrated in obeisance. Chapter 5, Episode 20. Vyasji tells Janmejay about Devi's return to Manidweep. Janmejay asked, Muni, the awesome majesty of Bhagavati Jagadamba commands the highest worship and grants the greatest peace. I have just discovered this, O twice born one. Even after savouring the ambrosial stream of your sweet narration, I am still thirsting for more. I consider myself very blessed and fortunate because, having very limited punyas, and for people like me, it is very difficult to get an opportunity like this. The story of the Devi is most holy and auspicious and bestows the protection of Bhagavati Jagadamba on all who hear it. This is the strongest and safest boat for crossing the ocean of illusion. Ancient and learned scholars of the Vedas advise all men who are caught in the web of duty, wealth, and sense pleasures to particularly experience and taste this nectar of divine knowledge. To take a human birth in the holy land of Bharat is the greatest good fortune. But after getting this auspicious birth, if men do not join the collective worship of Bhagavati, then they are living a wasted and meaningless existence that is impoverished, sick, and barren. They become servile to other masters. Like slaves, they carry the burdens of others, and day and night they are tormented by selfish and material problems. They never get satisfaction. The suffering of the blind, deaf, dumb, lame, and leprosy stricken should serve as a grim reminder that these did not engage themselves in the constant worship of Devi Jagadamba, Mother of the Universe. And when one sees men of regal bearing, of dignified and majestic disposition, with high level of tolerance and forgiving nature, who are held in high esteem by friends and relations, who are endowed with wealth and who are completely satisfied, then we must know without doubt that these have unceasingly worshipped the Mother Devi Jagadamba. O Vyasji, son of Satyavati, please do me the great favor of telling me more about the Devi. Mahishasura was a wicked demon. On the fervent prayers of the Devas, Mahalakshmi manifested and killed him. Then, in thanksgiving, all the gods sang her praises. Then she disappeared. Where did she go? You just said she went away. But did she go to heaven? Or did she go to the mortal world? Where is her abode? Did she relinquish her divine form? Or did she go and preside over Vaikunth? Or did she go and add glory and luster to Mount Sumeru? Please tell me everything. Vyasji says, Rajan, I had told you before this that Manidweep is a most pleasing, agreeable, elegant, and beauteous dwelling place. That is the place for the Devi's sport and amusement. It is said that that place is very dear to the Devi. That is that place where to gain entry Brahma, Vishnu, and Shankar had to become females. When they left, they again became males and then started their respective responsibilities. That most pleasing and beautiful island is situated in the middle of the ocean of nectar. Bhagavati Jagadamba assumes various forms in her constant play in that abode. After accepting the praises and worship of the Devas, that is where the Devi went. She is the supreme creator of illusion and delusion. She is ancient. She is eternal. In that most holy place, ceaseless and uninterrupted praises are sung in concert. The protectress of the universe had left. Seeing this, the Devas selected a strong and powerful king from the Sun dynasty and made him king of the world. His name was Shatrughan, and he was dignified and endowed with all kingly qualities. He ascended the throne which had forcibly been occupied by Mahishasura. He stayed in Ayodhya and ruled the world. After installing him, Indra and all the gods mounted their vehicles and left for their respective abodes. A golden reign of Dharma was established. The people lived in peace and happiness. The skies gave rain when necessary. Crops were plentiful. Trees were laden with fruits and fragrant flowers. The seasons were pleasant and comfortable. Cows gave abundant milk. Rivers flowed gently and provided clean and pure water and never overflowed in flood. Birds added beauty to the forest. Brahmins had genuine knowledge of the Vedas and performed their sacred duties. Kshatriyas lived within their maryadas and dharmas. They did charitable works and studied the scriptures. They never neglected their duty of protecting the kingdom. The kings resided over justice. There were no vices like avarice, desire, greed. Everyone lived in collective harmony. There was a society which disbursed wealth. The farms were filled with cows. O king, in that kingdom which comprised the whole world, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras were all devotees of the Devi. In all places, one could see temple flagpoles and yagya mandaps, canopies. Brahmins and Kshatriyas constantly performed yagyas all over the world, and this filled the atmosphere with auspiciousness. Women were gentle, amiable, faithful to their spouses, and truthful and sweet in their speech. Sons respected their fathers and were dharmic in their lives. There were no incidents of antisocial behavior or impious and adharmic acts. There were no lectures, meetings, or discourses other than on the Vedas and scriptures. There were never any disputes or controversies. Everyone was satisfied, comfortable, and of high ideals. It was an era of peace and happiness. No one died prematurely or accidentally. There was always a loving relationship between friends. No calamities or disasters ever befell anyone. No floods, no famine. People never indulged in rioting. They were free from epidemics, plague, and pestilence. No one got sick. There was no jealousy or hatred between anyone. Men and women lived happily and harmoniously. They lived like the gods in heaven. Robbers, renegades, disbelievers, heretics, frauds, impostors, and hypocrites were non existent. No one was miserly. No one was wicked and licentious. No scandal mongers and no gossips. They were all dharmatmas. Brahmins received public support. Everyone was engaged in work, sattvic in temperament and disposition, and knowledgeable in the Vedas. Brahmins were not inclined to accept alms. Everyone was generous, temperate, and sober. Living righteously within the dharmas, yagyas were performed with sattvic ingredients and grains. Oblations were prepared and offered in the havans. Animals were never sacrificed at havans and yagyas. Brahmins engaged themselves in the threefold occupation of charity, teaching the scriptures, and performing havans and yagyas and enjoyed sattvic livelihood. Brahmins of Rajasic temperament were also conversant in the Vedas. They functioned as purohits, that is, family priests to the Kshatriyas. Their six occupations were performing and getting performed, yagyas, giving charity and taking charity, and studying and teaching of the Vedas. As commanded by the king, there were jobs for everyone. Some spent their time in study. All the obstacles and obstructions that were caused by Mahishasura were removed by his death. Everyone was at peace and could resume their study of the Vedas and the scriptures. The Kshatriyas continued their job of protection and the Vaishyas carried on their trading. Some traders were agriculturists, some were cow traders, others were bankers. Everyone went about their business honestly and fearlessly. Pujas and worship of the lotus feet of Bhagavati Chandika was performed continuously in every part of the world. Chapter 5, Episode 21-22. Shumbh Nishumbh receive a boon from Brahma. They defeat the Devas. The Devas appeal to Devi for help. Vyasji says, Rajan, listen. I will tell you a famous story of the Devi. This story gives happiness to all living beings and also destroys all sins. Shumbh and Nishumbh were two very powerful demons. They were brothers. They could not be destroyed by anyone and they had mighty armies. Their main occupation was to harass the Devas. They were very proud and arrogant. The entire Danava community supported them. They fought battle with the Devi and were killed. For the benevolence of the Devas, the Devi came with her attendants and destroyed both these demons. It was during this battle that the powerful demons Chanda and Munda, the fierce Raktabija, and the dreadful Dhumralochan were also killed. By destroying them, the Devi freed the Devas from fear. After being venerated and adorned by the Devas, the Devi went to the holy mountains, the Himalayas. King Janmejay asked, who were these ancient Danavas and how did they become so powerful and invincible? Who supported them And how did they meet their death at the hands of a woman? Who did they impress with their tapasya and who granted them boons? Please tell me all this in detail. Vyasji says, King, listen to this story which is connected with the Devi. It is very stupendous and profound. Just by listening to it, sins are washed away. This most auspicious and holy story grants virtuous life, success in all endeavors, fulfillment of pure desires, and liberation or salvation. This story is ancient. Shumbh and Nishumbh were two famous Danavas who came to earth from Patal. They were brothers and had a fearsome appearance. They had reached the age of maturity. They decided to perform rigid austerities. They went to the sacred place Pushkar near Ajmer and began their tapasya. They renounced food and water. Their tapasya lasted for 10,000 years. In the end, the creator of the universe, Sri Brahmadev, came before them seated on a swan. He said, O most fortunate ones, arise. I am pleased with your tapasya. Ask whatever you desire. I am prepared to grant it. Vyasji says, hearing Brahmaji's pleasing voice, their meditation broke and they became alert. They performed a pradakshina, that is perambulation, around Brahma and then prostrated before him. Then, with great humility, they spoke to him in sweet voices. O God of gods, ocean of compassion, Brahma, you give protection to your devotees. O glorious one, if you are pleased with us, grant us immortality. There is no other fear that we have but of death. Because we are terrified, we have come to you for help. You are the foremost among gods. You are the creator of the universe, and you are the storehouse of compassion. O universal God, we are at your mercy. Please release us from this fear of birth and death. Brahmaji said, What an impossible boon you are asking for. In these three worlds, there is no one who can grant you such a boon. It can never be given. It is ordained that what is born must die, and what dies is reborn. The Almighty has established this Maryada as a permanent law. All living things are mortal. There can be no doubt about this. Therefore, ask for any other boon, I will fulfill that. Vyasji says, hearing this, Shumbh and Nishumbh fell into deep thought. Then they humbly said, O most benevolent one, grant that we should not die by the hands of any male god, man, animal, bird. This is our desire. Of course, the female of any species does not possess enough strength to kill us. We have not even an iota of fear from any female in the three worlds. Brahmaji, both of us brothers desire only that no male of any species should cause our death. We do not fear females because by nature they are weaker. Vyasji says, Brahmaji immediately granted the boon and returned to his abode. The two demons also returned to their home. When they reached, they called Shukracharya, installed him as their guru and purohit, family priest, and performed puja to him. Then, choosing an auspicious date and time, Muni Shukracharya gave them a silver singhasan, throne. Being the elder brother, Shumbh ascended the throne. All the Danavas paid tribute to their leader. Chand and Mund, two brave and powerful Danava brothers, came with large armies to support Shumbh. They had many elephants, horses, and chariots in their army. Dhumralochan was another arrogant and proud demon. When he heard that Shumbh had been installed As the leader of the Danavas, he came with his army to show allegiance. In the same way, another demon called Raktabija also came. By virtue of a boon, he had become extremely powerful. He had two Akshauhini armies. Akshauhini, that is, an army is considered complete when it consists of 1,09,350 foot soldiers, 65,610 horses, 21,870 chariots, and 21,870 elephants. Raktabija had two such complete armies. The reason for his great power was that when wounded by any weapon, every drop of blood that fell from his body, as soon as it touched the earth, became an identical demon as Raktabija. Every new demon thus produced would be fully armed with weapons and armor. All the demons that were produced from drops of his blood were identical in appearance and ready to plunge into battle immediately. For this reason, Raktabija was considered unconquerable and invincible on the battlefield. No one could ever kill him. Besides these famous Danavas, a host of other demons also came to swear allegiance to Shumb. All of them owned Chaturang armies, that is, army consisting of four divisions: horses, elephants, chariots, and infantry. At that time, it was impossible to calculate the numerical strength of the military of Shumb and Nishumb. Shumb had established his overlordship over the whole world. Chapter 5, Episode 23. The manifestation of Kaushiki, the forming of Kalika. Shumb sends Sugriv to the Devi. Vyasji says, the Devas were very disturbed by the enemies. When they prayed to the Devi, she created from within herself a new form. When Jagadamba took form from Bhagavati Parvati, the whole world called her Kaushiki. After Bhagavati Kaushiki came out from the body of Parvati, she became weak and the color of Parvati became black. She came to be known as Kalika. She was as black as ink and presented a fearsome form. It was her nature to fulfill all the desires of her bhaktas. She became famous by the name of Kalaratri. Bhagavati Jagadamba also had another pleasing form. She was decorated with divine ornaments. She was full of elegance, grace, and loveliness. Bhagavati Jagadamba smiled and said to the Devas, go back fearlessly and take your places. I will destroy the enemy. For this, I will descend on the battlefield. To remove your fears and make you happy again, I will kill Shumb, Nishumb, and all the Daityas who are harassing you. The Devi sat on her vehicle, the lion, and went towards the place where the demons lived. She invited Kali to accompany her. When she reached, she stopped near a spot where the wind was blowing strongly, and she created a divine music which enchanted the whole world. Even the birds and the animals stopped to listen. The Devas in the heavens were captivated with the sweet notes. Shumb had two attendants, Chand and Mund. They were roaming all over, free and unrestrained. They passed that way and saw that Bhagavati Jagadamba in her divine and regal form was singing. She had given a place before her to Kalika. They were astonished at this sight. Rajan, they immediately went to Shumb. They said, Raja Shumb, a woman has just come from the Himalayas who is so beautiful that she can enchant even Kamadev. A lion is her vehicle. It is difficult to find someone like her even in heaven or Gandharvalok. She is singing in such soft, sweet, and melodious notes that the whole world has stopped to listen. Maharaj, you should find out whose daughter she is and why she has come here, and then give her a place in your kingdom. She is worthy of you, and good fortune is dripping from her eyes. O king, you are already entitled to all the Deva's possessions. Then why are you hesitating to appropriate this Devi? You have already taken possession of Indra's powerful elephant Airavat, his Parijit tree, and his horse Uchchaishrava. You also own Brahma's airborne celestial car. You forcibly took away the 9 gems from Kuber. You snatched away the shining white umbrella from Varun. Your brother Nishumbh also clashed with Varun and Varun lost. Since then, his noose is in the possession of Nishumbh. Out of fear, Samudra gave you a garland of lotuses which never wither and various precious gems. You have even conquered the Shakti of death and the pole of Yamraj. There is no end to your successful exploits. The cow Kamadhenu, which came out of the churning of the ocean, now stands in your yard. Menaka and all Apsaras are in your service. You have laid claim to everything. Then why do you hesitate to claim this Devi? She will enhance all the gems and ornaments that you have taken from the Devas. There is no greater beauty in all the 3 worlds. Danavraj, go and bring her and make her your queen. Vyasji says, Chand and Mund spoke in voices which were dripping honey. Shumbha was pleased. He turned to Sugriv and said, Sugriv, you are very intelligent. Go and speak to the Devi in such a manner that she will be impressed and come here with you. Those who are knowledgeable in the art of enticement recommend that a messenger should go with sweet words and rich gifts to impress a woman. Vyasji says, listening to the clever words of Shumbh, Sugriv immediately left. When he reached, he saw the Devi seated on a lion. He offered pranams and spoke in sweet tones. Sugriv said, O virtuous one, Shumbh is a very brave and powerful man. He is also very handsome. He is the enemy of the Devas. He is the sovereign lord of the 3 worlds. This noble soul has sent me here because he has heard the description of your beauty and he is enchanted. His message is, O lustrous and beautiful one, I have defeated all the Devas. I am the supreme king of all the 3 worlds. All offerings made at Yagyas are my property. I have appropriated all the valuable wealth and riches of the heaven. O beautiful one, gods, demons, and mortals are all under my jurisdiction and follow behind me. All your attributes have reached my heart via my ears. I am now your servant and will obey all your wishes. You, who have eyes like peacock feathers, I entreat you to accept me as your husband. Then you can be queen of the 3 worlds. I will serve you as long as I live. I am immortal. No god, demon, or human can kill me. You will be Suhagan, an auspicious married lady forever. This is the message from my lord. Ponder over it and give me your sweet reply so that I can convey it to King Shumbh. Sri Devi smiled and began to speak. I know Nishumbh and the powerful Shumbh. Shumbh has defeated all the gods and killed all the enemies. He is full of qualities. He has been given the opportunity of enjoying all the wealth of the world. He is very charitable, brave, generous, and as handsome as Kamadev himself. He possesses 32 good qualities. Neither gods nor men can vanquish him. I have heard all this about him, and that is why I have come from the Himalayas to find a suitable husband. I have looked at all the Devas, the humans, and the Gandharvas and Rakshasas. All of them tremble at the name of Shumb. O fortunate messenger, go to Shumb and in a private audience with him, give him this message from me. Rajan, you are the bravest among the brave and the handsomest among the handsome. You are generous, brave, full of good qualities, learned, victorious all over, born of high lineage, noble, skillful, free, and all powerful. I have heard of all your glories. I am looking for a suitable bridegroom, but there is one condition. When I was young, I made a vow. I became very proud of my strength and made a decision that I would only marry that person who would defeat me on the battlefield. My friends laughed and wondered at this strange condition. Therefore, Rajan, if you wish to marry me, you have to fulfill this condition of defeating me on the battlefield. Either you or your brother may come, but you will have to defeat me first. Chapter 5, Episode 24-25. Dialogue between Devi and Dhumralochan. Death of Dhumralochan. Vyasji says, hearing the Devi, Sugriv was astonished beyond bounds. Like a typical woman, you are speaking on impulse. Do you not know that Shumb defeated Indra and all the gods and also all the powerful Daityas? How can you wish to fight with him? There is no one in the three worlds who can win a battle with him. You will not even last a moment. One should consider one's own strength and that of the opponent. Because he is enchanted, he is begging. It would be wise for you to accept him. Give up your false pride and marry either Shumb or Nishumb. If you do not agree to go to him, he will send strong armies of strong Daityas. They will forcibly take you to him. You are most respectable, and what I am advising is for your benevolence. The Devi said, O fortunate messenger, you are very clever and honest. I am aware that Shumb and Nishumb are mighty and powerful. But how can I disregard the vow I have taken? Therefore, you go to Nishumb and the stronger Shumb and tell them that without a battle it is impossible for me to marry anyone, no matter how beautiful he may be. For that reason, even though I am frail, I have asked for war. If you have any Shakti in you, you may fight with me. But if you are afraid of my Trishul, then better run away to Patal. If you value your life, then leave heaven and earth and go to Patal quickly. O messenger, go and tell your master all this, and then let him decide what he wishes to do. It is the duty of a messenger to deliver a message faithfully and without any prejudice on other side. Now go without further delay. Vyasji says, the words spoken by Devi Bhagavati Jagadamba were prudent, benevolent, powerful and brilliant. Sugriv was amazed. After giving it a lot of thought, he went to Shumb, fell at his feet and spoke humbly and gently. Sugriv said, Rajendra, the dharma of a loyal subject is to speak that which is the truth and also which is pleasing. This is causing me concern in my heart because the truth is not always pleasing. A king can be angry with his messenger if the truth does not please him. I have just returned after meeting the Devi. I cannot tell Whether she is frail or strong, I could not judge. But she wants war. Her message is very strong and sharp. Please be kind and listen. She has said, when I was a young girl, I told my friends that I would only marry the person who would defeat me in battle and destroy my ego. Rajendra, this vow should not be broken. Therefore, you must act accordingly. Therefore, you who observe Dharma, you must fight a battle with me and win, and then only marry me. Maharaj, this is the message. She is absolutely determined to fight. She is seated on a lion, and she carries all manner of weapons. Now only you can decide what you wish to do. Vyasji says, after hearing the message, Shumb turned to his brother Nishumb and asked, brother, you are very wise. What do you think we should do? Should I go there myself, or will you take an army and go? Nishum said, O valiant one, at present neither you nor I should go to the battlefield. Send Dhumralochan, and he will defeat her and bring her to you. Then you can marry her. Vyasji says, agreeing with this, Shumb turned to Dhumralochan and ordered him to go. Shumb said, Dhumralochan, it is your duty to go and humble that proud Devi and bring her to me. If any Devas, Danavas, or humans come to her aid, just push them into the jaws of death. But see that no harm or injury is inflicted on the Devi. Bring her safe and untouched. Vyasji says, Dhumralochan offered pranam to his master and left with a large army. His army consisted of 60,000 Rakshasas. When he reached, he saw the beautiful Devi with doe eyes sitting in a beautiful forest. He approached her respectfully and began to speak. He said, O most auspicious and fortunate Devi, Shumb is very impressed with your beauty and qualities. He is well versed in politics, and that is why he has sent me as a messenger. He does not want to jeopardize this delicate situation, so he did not come himself. The previous messenger conveyed some incorrect message, and this has created dark clouds of concern. I have come with a large army. You are intelligent. Shumb is so powerful that he has gained victory over the three worlds. Do not throw away the opportunity of becoming his queen. There is no need to battle with him. You can win by your charms. Kalika can bear witness to this. Vyasji says, Dhumralochan finished speaking and waited. Then Bhagavati Kalika laughed and said, O lowly fool, you speak like an imbecile. You are entertaining false ideas and speaking foolishly. Shumb has sent you to fight, so get ready and fight. The Devi has become angry. She will demolish Shumb, Nishumb, and all other Daityas who come before her. Then she will leave. How dare you compare that horrible Shumb to this most lovely, most lustrous, and most divine Devi who enchants the three worlds? It is more unfit and preposterous than marriage between a lion and a jackal, an elephant and a donkey, or the sacred cow Surabhi with an ordinary bull. Go instantly to Shumb and Nishumb and convey my message that either they come to the battlefield or run away to Patal. Vyasji says, O king, Dhumralochan became furious and said to Devi Kalika, I will kill you and this proud lion and leave your bodies on the battlefield. Then I will take this Devi to my master. There is no doubt in this. Devi Kalika said, O fool, why are you talking useless things? People who are warriors do not speak like this. Use your weapons and fight. It is time for you to go to Yama's house. Vyasji says, Dhumralochan immediately picked up his bow and began to shoot arrows. Indra and all the gods were singing loudly, "Victory to the Devi!" Now, a fierce battle began between Dhumralochan and Devi Kalika. Many weapons were used, including arrows, spears, swords, maces, and iron poles. Dhumralochan had donkeys harnessed to his chariot. First of all, Devi Kalika killed the donkeys with her arrows and then splintered the chariot. Dhumralochan got into another chariot and began to shoot innumerable arrows at the Devi. He was so angry that heat radiated from his whole body. Then Devi Kalika sent a rain of arrows that dropped a large number of Danavas on the field. The chariots, the donkeys, and the chariot drivers were scattered all over the field. To pacify the Devas, Bhagavati Kalika began to sound the conch. Having lost his chariots, Dhumralochan rushed at the Devi with a heavy spear. Bhagavati Jagadamba gave such a loud, rebuking roar, that is Hunkar, that Dhumralochan caught fire and was burned to ashes. Seeing this, the Danava army began to panic. They turned and ran away from the battlefield, which presented a most fearsome sight. Dead bodies of Danavas, elephants, horses, and donkeys were strewn all over, and scavenger animals and birds were fighting over them. Bhagavati Jagadamba moved some distance away and began to blow the conch. The Devas dropped petals from the skies and sang songs of victory. Shumbh heard the conch in his palace and came out. He saw the remnants of his Danava army limping back in a pitiable state. They were wounded, some had lost their limbs, and all were wailing in fear and pain. Then he shouted, "Where is Dhumralochan? Why are all of you in this condition? Did you not bring the Devi?" The soldiers said, "The entire army is either dead or wounded. Dhumralochan has also been killed. All this has been done by Kalika, and this deafening sound of the conch is coming from Ambika. The amazing thing is that Jagadamba is all alone. She does not have a single soldier, but at any time the Devas may come to her aid. Maharaj, please discuss this with your ministers before taking any action." Vyasji says, the proud Shumbh, who had crushed many armies, was very disturbed. He took his brother aside and said, "Brother, Kalika has killed Dhumralochan and sent most of my army into the jaws of death. Now she is sounding the conch. This proves that even intelligent persons cannot foretell the swing of fate. Fate is so powerful and unpredictable that it can make a blade of grass work like a spear and weaken the most powerful man. At present, fate is unfavorable to us. That is why Ambika has come here. What is your advice? Should we run away to safety or go to battle? Even though you are younger, at a time like this, I consider you wiser and older." Nishum said, "We should neither run away nor hide in our fortress. We should face this Devi in battle. I have very powerful Danavas in my army. I will go and defeat the Devi and kill her. But in case fate decides otherwise and I am killed, you should not hesitate to go to battle." Shumb said, "You wait. First, let me send the warriors Chand and Mund. It is not fitting to send an elephant to kill a rabbit." Then he ordered Chand and Mund to take an army and go. Their primary task would be to kill the Devi. Consider yourself lucky to engage in battle with Kalika and defeat her. If you are not able to capture Ambika and bring her to me, kill her also." Chapter 5, Episode 26 to 27. Death of Chand Mund. Conversation between Devi and Raktabij. Vyasji says, the two Danavas, Chand and Mund, were very powerful and brave. When they saw the Devi Bhagavati Jagadamba, they spoke peacefully. O Devi, it is possible that you do not know that Shumb has defeated the Devas and Nishumb has been victorious over Indra. O beautiful one, you are all alone. Only your lion is here to serve as a vehicle. How can you challenge these two great warriors? The Devas will only cause your destruction by their selfish prayers. Because you have 18 hands, do not be so confident. Shumb is a very accomplished fighter. He is the one who cut the trunk of Airavat. So, heed my advice and accept Shumb. Wise people renounce danger from a distance. Vyasji says, the Devi spoke in a voice like thunder. O cunning and wild demon, go away. Why are you speaking such deceptive words? Why should I ignore Vishnu and Shankar and look to your master for a husband? The whole world recognizes me as supreme. I have seen innumerable Shumbhas and Nishumbhas, and I have killed countless Danavas and Daityas. At this moment, destiny is present to send all the Danavas and Daityas to their destruction. Shumb and Nishumbh are treacherous. You better observe the highest dharma of the warriors and try to find a place in heaven. After you die, I will kill your brother and Shumb and Nishum as well as Raktabij. After that, I will go back to my abode. You either go or stay and fight. Do not speak the language of cowards. Vyasji says, the two Danavas, Chand and Mund, began to pull their bowstrings with loud twanging sounds. The Devi sounded her conch, which could be heard in all the 10 directions. The lion also began to roar loudly. These sounds were very comforting to the Devas, Munis, Yakshas, Gandharvas, Kinnaras, and other celestial beings. Chand and Mund used various kinds of weapons and kept shooting sharp arrows at the Devi. This angered the Devi, and in her wrath, she resembled a rain-filled cloud. Her eyes grew large like the banana flower, and her eyebrows slanted. She was dressed in tiger skin and covered with the skin of an elephant. She wore a garland of skulls. She carried the spear of Shiva and a noose, and she looked as terrible as the night of annihilation. She had an enormous face, and she kept putting her tongue out. She had powerful legs with which she was killing the demons. She began to pick up Danavas and put them into her vast mouth and crush them with her teeth. She even put whole elephants into her mouth, the horses and chariots. Seeing this devastation, Chand and Mund were shocked. Chand had a chakra which shone like the sun and which compared with Sudarshan chakra. He sent the chakra spinning towards the Devi. She shot an arrow at it which shattered the chakra into small pieces. She also shot an arrow at Chand which caused him to fall down in a swoon. Mund came rushing at the fall of his brother. The Devi Kalika used the arrow with a crescent head. It injured Mund, and the injury was so unbearable that he lay down on the ground. In the meanwhile, Chand revived from his swoon, picked up a mace and charged. The Devi threw her noose and snared him. Seeing his brother trapped in the noose, Mund also charged. The Devi caught him also in her noose. Then, dragging them like snared rabbits, Devi Kalika went before Bhagavati Jagadambika. She said, O dear one, I present you these animals to be sacrificed at the yagya of war. Bhagavati Jagadambika smiled and said, O warlike Devi, you are wise and intelligent. It is your purpose to immediately fulfill the prayers of the Devas. Vyasji says, Devi Kalika said, war yagyas are very well known. In this, the sword acts like a pillar. I will use the sword to kill the sacrifice so that it is not counted as murder. Saying this, she took her sword and cut off the heads of Chand and Mund. Then she began to drink their blood. Devi Bhagavati Jagadamba was pleased and said, Kalike, you have fulfilled the prayers of the Devas. I grant you a boon. Because you killed Chand and Mund, you will hereafter be known as Chamunda. Vyasji says, after Chand and Mund had been killed, the remaining Danavas ran to Shumb. They were badly injured and bleeding, and many had lost limbs. They said, Maharaj, save us. Kali has killed Chand and Mund and is ready to consume all of us. Elephants, horses, and soldiers have all been cut down, and the battlefield is like a river of blood. All the chariots are in pieces, and the wheels are spinning like tops. Maharaj, in order to preserve your lineage, you must move to Patal. Otherwise, Kalika will kill all of us. Even the lion is standing there and swallowing all the Danavas. Maharaj, the merciless Devi is bent upon destroying the entire Danava race. Even if you do get her, what good will come of it for us? For her sake, you have already sent most of your warriors into the jaws of death. Maharaj, victory and defeat is entirely ruled by fate. The wise man does not take on difficulties for short spans of pleasure. O Lord of the world, see the play of fate. One woman has been successful in decimating entire Danava armies. No doubt you defeated the gods, but now you have no army, and the Devi is provoking you to fight. It happened a long time ago. You had done a difficult tapasya near the sacred area of Pushkar, and the creator Brahmaji was pleased. He offered you any boon, and you said, I should not die by any god, Daitya, man, snake, yaksh, or kinnar. No male of any species should kill me. Lord, this is why this special woman has come to kill you. Recognize this and desist from meeting her in battle. This Devi is Mahamaya, that is goddess of illusion and delusion. She is Param Prakriti, the primordial, material cause of the universe, and causing dissolution is also her prime objective. She is supreme, reigns over all, and is also the mother of the gods. She contains all the three gunas, but in her present state, she is in tamasic form. She is unconquerable, invincible, indestructible, eternal, all knowing, and omnipresent. She is also known as the mother of the Vedas, Gayatri, and Sandhya. She grants protection to her devotees. Her form as Gauri gives great joy to the gods and makes them fearless. Please do not challenge her. It is only if you surrender to her that you can be saved. The Danavas, who are still alive, are young and need you to keep them from dying. Vyasji says, He who crushed all the gods could not accept this and began to speak with false bravery. Shumba said, Foolish ones, not only your body, but your brains have also been shot full of holes. Because you love your life, you ran away from the battlefield. You may go to Patal. I have no fear of fate, Because the gods also are subservient to fate. Then what is there to fear? What has to happen will happen. According to the workings of fate, actions also take place. For fear of death, a wise person does not give up his dharma. As is destined, one gets happiness and sorrow, life and death. Even Indra and all the gods cannot escape this. In the same way, I am also governed by fate. Whether I win or lose, I do not care. Therefore, I will not run away in the hope of living hundreds of years more. I will certainly fight. Whatever has to happen, let it happen. Without taking action, one cannot achieve his desires. If a woman sits in front of the grinding stone with wheat but does not grind, how will she get flour? When one does not succeed, the main cause is lack of necessary action. One must also take into consideration the place, time, own strength, and strength of the enemy. Vyasji says, Shumb made up his mind and sent for Raktabij. Shumb said, O powerful Raktabij, you go to the battlefield and use all your might in the fight. Raktabij said, Maharaj, do not have any fears. I will kill that Devi. What do I fear, a little maiden brought by the Devas? I will humble her and bring her to you as a slave. Vyasji says, O foremost of the Kuru clan, Raktabij mounted his chariot and left with a large army. He marched towards the Devi Bhagavati Jagadamba, who was enthroned on a mountain. When she saw him, she sounded her conch. The sound sent ripples of fear through the Danava army. Raktabij drew near the Devi and spoke gently. Raktabij said, O little girl, do you take me for a coward that you are frightening me with the deafening sound of your conch? O delicate one, do you think I am Dhumralochana? My name is Raktabij. I have come to fight. Take guard. I have no fear of you. Today, you can see my prowess in battle. You have served respectfully the wise old patriarchs. You must have also heard the Shastras regarding science of ethics and politics. If you also have knowledge of poetry and literature, then listen to me. There are 9 kinds of pleasures. Out of this, the two foremost ones are the sentiment of love and the state of peace and tranquility. The first, which is Shringar Ras, is the most popular. By the virtue of that, Vishnu abides with Lakshmi, Brahma with Saraswati, Shankar with Parvati, and Indra with Shachi. By the same sentiments, a creeper entwines a tree, a deer roams with a doe, and a pigeon flies with a female pigeon. From this flows peace and tranquility. It is impossible to conquer lust, anger, greed, and attachment. Therefore, O auspicious one, you should choose a partner for life. Either Shumb or Nishumb will prove worthy. They have established their supremacy over the gods. The holy recital of Srimad Devi Bhagavat. Jai Shrimati Ji.